All right, so we were going to try to implement toString in LLbag to determine if our insert is correct. So to test it, we will create our own toString. So here's LLbag, and I've just added toString under getTargetCount. And in toString, remember that we're using a while loop, okay? And what we're going to do is, so this is the way we go through, God. I'm so sad that I have to constantly erase this board. Maybe I'm not sad about it. Maybe it's nice to have this limited space. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, head can point to any number of these things, right? And we know we're at the end if we get to null, okay? So we don't know the size of this thing. We could count it, we could keep track of that variable, but we don't need to in linked lists. We know we're just ending at null, all right? So how are we gonna do this? We're going to have current point to the same node head is, okay? And as long as current's not null, we can process this as a node, okay? In this case, that means printing out the data of the node. All right, and then we'll make current equal to the node it's referencing's next, and that'll shallow copy this one, right? So the next of A and current will be both pointing to the same node, okay? Shallow copy, right? So we shallow copy the head, and then we say current equals current dot next, and that'll get us to the next node, okay? So that should be pretty straightforward. Okay, if you had trouble doing that, maybe pause right here and try to do it on your own, okay? No shame, just work at it, and if you don't get it right, then unpause and see how we do it, okay? So, welcome back, those who paused, right? Good on you for pausing. So I'm gonna make node current equals head. Okay, so now they're shallow copy, right? And I can say while current does not equal null, and this is a classic way to do this, okay? While current does not equal null, all right? And now we can say, we wanna first create our string, right? I didn't do to return, string to return, right? It's just kind of the same thing we did with the other one. And then we can return, to return, okay? And now we just got to populate to return with the values that have been inserted. How do we do that? Well, each node has data, and that data is the integer that happens to be in the bag, right, at that particular node. So we can say to return equals to return plus, right? This concatenates it. We could put a space or something, plus, and what did we decide? We decided integer.toString would do it. And now we need to pass in that, we have to put that integer in, and we could just say current.data, okay? So the current node's data, all right? So we go to this node, we grab its data and we put it into return, and we go to this node, we grab its data and we put it into return, and we keep on going down the list, grabbing the data and putting it into return, okay? So what eventually should happen is we should have current will equal null, okay? And in that case, we kick out of this while loop, and we should have all the data here. If we did it right. If we didn't do it right, we'll find out in a few seconds. You could pause it and try to test this out, and then when you're ready to unpause, we'll test it out together. So we could kind of do, I could just change this into LLbag, right? And change this into LLbag, okay? And notice that nothing else really needs to change. LLbag has an insert that takes an I, because both of them are trying to match this interface, so the functions don't have to change, right? Between LLbag and ArrayBag, they both have the same bag interface functions. That's something that's really important, okay? And Then at the end, we're going to print out my bag. And since LLbag has implemented toString, maybe we'll get something printed out. Okay. And we could try it with this for loop. So we're thinking it should have 0 to 128 in it. Let's see what happens. Or do we get an error? Did I return toString? Did I not do something correct? I think I didn't do something correct. To return, so we got this. We're in the count. We're still running, so I have an infinite loop. Did you see the infinite loop? So pause the video and see if you can see the infinite loop. In toString, okay? So I have an infinite loop here because I never update current. So current is equal to head, and I keep current at head, and I never update it. So hopefully you caught that. If you didn't catch that, think about it, right? I make current equal to head, but the final thing we have to do, and the one we talked about here, is current needs to equal current.next, okay? And that'll get us to the next node. So remember, if your program seems to be running, right, and it's, I guess it always runs, but I've seen this enough to know that it was an infinite loop. Sometimes infinite loops actually like freeze up processing. So if it froze up your processing, sorry about that. Good. So, but at least you know that I'm making tons of mistakes too, right? Everyone does. All right, so now we're starting at 128 and we're going to 0. Remember, that makes sense because we're inserting at the head, right? So that's interesting. So we insert at the array, we insert it at the end, but in the linked list, we insert it at the head, okay? Which means we inserted 0 first, 2 second, 4 third, 6 fourth, right, all the way, and the final thing we inserted was 128. So our linked list, our head points to a node that says 128, and that node points to another node that has 126, and that node points to another node that has 124. So it looks pretty good. Looks like we're good. We did a sanity check. We thought about it, and it looks like insert is correct, okay? So far, so good, right? So now we've got to think about some of these other ones. They're of varying difficulty. So at this point, we could go down and you can think about ones that you can implement. For example, counting, get target count is going to be very similar to toString in both of these cases, right? All you got to do is you got to keep a counter, and if the data it happens to be in the linked list case or in the array case, if that data there happens to be the value of target, you just update the counter, okay? I'm going to let you do that in both of these. So maybe you should do get target right now, okay? And then what else? Is empty should be really easy in both of them, right? How do you know if it is empty, right? You could check that with both so you could do that. So I want you to do this one. I want you to do get target count. I want you to do contains target because that's the same thing as get target count. In fact, contains target could call get target count, which is kind of fun. So if you do get target count, you could use that to your advantage because that'll tell you whether to return true or false. Think about it. Emptying this thing is really easy too. Okay, in both cases, emptying it's easy. How do you empty a linked list? Well, what does it mean to have an empty linked list? Okay, what does it mean for your one private variable? And what does it mean to empty out this partially filled array? Okay, if you empty out the partially filled array, that means everything in the array is trash values again. Okay, so how do you make everything in the array trash values? Right? A partially filled array is part of the array is filled with real values and part of the array is filled with trash values. And there's something that tells you that. So think about that for empty. Size should be easy here, right? And in linked list should also be easy. You just have a counter and every node you hit you go to it, okay? So you should at this point be able to do all of these, okay, in both linked list and array. And it's very similar to toString. And I actually like this because it's going to force it in your head that in the array part, we're going to be doing a for loop, and in the linked list part, we're going to be doing a while loop, right? So you can go through and do all of that. And then finally, we're gonna have a remove value and a remove target value. And we'll talk about intelligent way to do that in the next video, okay? So hopefully this has been helpful. But yeah, see you in the next video.